The galaxy was not silent anymore. Strange whispers moved between the stars. Entire colonies disappeared overnight. Ships were found drifting in the void, empty, with no crew, no signs of battle. Just silence. Aliens across the galaxy spoke one name in fear: Zerath. No one knew what the Zerath truly looked like. Survivors were too few, and those who escaped refused to speak. Some described shadows with claws. Others swore they saw mouths within mouths, feeding in the dark. But the truth was always the same. When the Zerath arrived, no one survived. World after world fell. Fleets tried to resist, but their weapons did nothing. The Zerath adapted, always returning stronger, always hungrier. Soon, entire star systems were abandoned. No one dared to resist. The galaxy trembled. Inside the Grand Council Hall, alien leaders gathered. The hall was filled with hundreds of species, each trembling, each whispering. They were supposed to be the wisest of the galaxy. Yet now they argued like frightened children. "We must hide our young," one reptilian voice cried. "Hide them." "Where?" another shouted. "Nowhere is safe." "They cannot be fought. We must offer peace. Perhaps even surrender." The hall fell into chaos. The Zerath had broken their courage before a single shot was fired. But then a voice rose above. "The panic, calm, firm human running will not save you." All eyes turned. A human commander stood in the center of the hall. His uniform was worn, his face scarred. He did not shout. He did not beg. He only looked at the council with steady eyes. "You all fear the Zerath because they kill your warriors, your fleets, your cities, but you do not see the truth. The Zerath do not simply kill. They hunt. And what they hunt most are children." A wave of horror swept through the council. The commander's voice hardened. "You hide, you run, you surrender. But none of that matters. The Zerath will still come for the young, they always do. And if no one stops them, every child in this galaxy will be nothing but prey." Silence. The kind of silence that burned. One alien leader finally spoke, her voice shaking. "Then tell us, who can stop them? Who can protect the young?" The human did not hesitate. "We can, humans." The council erupted. Laughter, anger, disbelief. "You are mad," cried one alien. "No one can face the Zerath." "You are just a minor species," another sneered. "Your numbers are small, your fleet's weaker than ours. What makes you think you can succeed where we have failed?" The commander stood taller. "Because we do not run. Because when our children are in danger, we do not surrender. We fight. And we do not stop fighting until they are safe. That is the one thing humans never give up." The aliens scoffed. But there was something in his eyes. Something they did not understand. A quiet fire. Far away, in a distant colony. Alarms suddenly rang. The Zerath had arrived. Darkness fell over the colony's sky. Shadows moved through the streets. Doors cracked open. Families screamed, clutching their young. Alien guards threw down their weapons and fled in terror, and then heavy footsteps echoed. Not of Zerath, of humans. A squad of human marines entered the colony, their weapons ready, their armor scarred from old battles. Their leader raised his hand. "Get the children to safety," he ordered. "We hold the line." The aliens stared in disbelief. No one had ever stood their ground against the Zerath. No one dared. Yet the humans did not hesitate. Shadows moved closer. A scream pierced the air. The Zerath had come. The battle began in silence. At first, only the hiss of movement in the dark. Then a sudden clash, a scream, a gunshot. Explosions lit the night. The Zerath surged forward, claws flashing, bodies twisting in unnatural shapes. They were monsters of shadow, more nightmare than flesh. Yet the humans met them head-on. One Marine fell, torn apart, but the others stood firm. A woman with fire in her eyes dragged a child from the rubble, shielding him with her own body while firing back into the darkness. A soldier, bleeding, held his ground at the gate, refusing to move until every child was safe behind him. For the first time in history, the Zerath were not unchallenged. For the first time, they were forced back. When dawn came, the colony still stood. Smoke rose, bodies lay broken, but the children were alive. The aliens wept. They looked at the humans with new eyes, not as weak, not as foolish, but as something else entirely. The human commander's words echoed in their minds. Only humans can guard the young. And so the whispers began to change. The galaxy still feared the Zerath. But now, another name was spoken with awe. Humans. The colony was quiet after the first attack. Too quiet. Buildings were broken, streets cracked, and smoke still rose into the air. The survivors whispered about the humans who had stood their ground. They whispered about how, for the first time, the Zerath had been forced to retreat. But whispers do not stop monsters. The Zerath always returned. It began with shadows again. The second night, the colony lights flickered. Power systems failed. A cold wind moved through the empty streets, though there was no air to stir. Every door locked. Every alien parent held their child close. They all knew what was coming. Inside a bunker, alien families huddled together. A reptilian father shook as he whispered, "They will come again. No one survives when the Zerath return." But in the same bunker, human Marines stood ready, their weapons charged, their faces grim. They did not whisper. They waited. A young alien turned to one of them and asked, voice trembling, "Why are you not afraid?" The Marine, a woman with short hair and scars on her cheek, looked down and answered softly, "Because fear does not protect children. Only courage does." Then the ground shook. The Zerath had returned. They did not strike like armies. They moved like hunters, crawling, climbing, twisting into impossible shapes. They flowed through shadows, cutting off every escape. The sky darkened as if night itself was falling. This time, they came for the nursery. Inside the alien nursery, the smallest children cried. Walls shook as claws scraped against metal doors. The alien guards dropped their weapons, fleeing again. One mother screamed after them, "Cowards! You leave our young to die." But before the doors could break, the humans arrived. The Marine squad stormed in, forming a shield wall around the nursery. They planted explosives at the choke points, set up heavy guns, and sealed the children behind their armor. Their leader, Sergeant Hale, stood in the center. His voice was steady, not loud but strong enough to cut through the fear. No retreat, not one step back. We hold this place or every child dies. Understood? The squad answered as one. Understood. The first wave came fast. Shadows slipped through cracks, claws flashing. Explosives boomed, shaking the walls, filling the air with fire. The Zerath screamed, high, terrible sounds that rattled bone. Yet, the humans did not run. They fired in bursts, cutting down shadow after shadow. Grenades exploded, filling the air with shrapnel and smoke. The floor was slick with blood, both human and alien. One Marine was dragged into the dark. Another was wounded, screaming in pain, but still fired with his last breath. Inside the nursery, alien parents held their children tight. They heard the gunfire, the roars, the explosions, and for the first time they heard something else. The Zerath screaming in pain. The monsters were being hurt. They were being stopped. But the Zerath were clever. They adapted. The second wave came stronger. Their claws glowed, cutting through armor. Their bodies shifted, turning harder, faster, deadlier. The Marines were pushed back step by step. A barricade fell. A gun jammed. A soldier cried out. "We can't hold them." Sergeant Hale grabbed him, shaking him hard. "You don't fight for yourself. You fight for them." He pointed to the nursery door. "You stand or those children die. Do you understand me?" The Marine's fear turned into fire. He slammed a new magazine into his rifle and shouted, "For the children!" The others echoed the cry, "For the children!" They charged forward again. The battle raged for hours. Bullets clashed against claws. Fire burned shadows. Screams filled the air. The nursery doors shook. but never opened. Every human stood like stone, refusing to fall back. At last, when the sun rose over the colony, the Zerath pulled away. Their shadows faded into the cracks of the world. The hunters had been denied their prey. When the silence finally returned, the bunker doors opened. Alien children stepped out, wide-eyed, holding their parents' hands. They saw the humans, covered in blood, armor broken, weapons smoking, but still standing. One small alien child ran forward, clutching the leg of a Marine. "You saved us," she whispered. The Marine knelt down, bloody but smiling, and said softly, "That's our job." The council received the news in shock. "Impossible," one alien leader gasped. "The Zerath do not retreat." "They did," another whispered, "because of humans." Fear shifted into something new. For the first time, the galaxy had seen, the Zerath pushed back. For the first time, there was proof they were not invincible, and the proof had come not from fleets, not from councils, not from great alien empires. It had come from humans. But victory had a price. Many Marines lay dead. The survivors carried their bodies back without tears, only silent respect. They knew the Zerath would return. They always returned, yet every alien who saw them now spoke the same words. "Only humans can guard the young, and Tiu." Across the stars, the whispers of fear began to change into whispers of hope. The colony still smelled of smoke. Broken walls and scorched streets carried the marks of war. In the center square, a long line of bodies lay under dark cloth. Human bodies. The survivors gathered, silent. Alien parents clutched their children, their eyes wet with tears. They owed their lives to those lying still before them, and yet even in their grief they whispered the same words. Humans fought the Zerath, and won. But for the humans, victory did not feel like triumph. It felt like loss. Sergeant Hale stood among the bodies, helmet tucked under his arm. His armor was cracked, stained with blood that was not only his own. He looked at each soldier, friends, brothers, sisters, who would never rise again. One alien elder approached him cautiously. "You saved us," the elder said softly. "You saved our children. Your people are different." Hale did not smile. His voice was low, steady, but heavy. "Saving them cost lives. My soldiers died. My family is smaller now. That is the price we pay." The elder lowered his head, ashamed. Word of the battle spread quickly across the galaxy. From one world to another, stories flew. The Zerath had been stopped. They were not invincible. For the first time in history, hunters had bled. Every alien race repeated the same question. How? The answer was always the same. Humans. But this new fame was not without cost. Wherever humans went, they were now asked to guard nurseries, schools, hatcheries, any place where young ones lived. Aliens begged for their protection, offering riches, weapons, entire cities in exchange. Yet humans did not fight for reward. They fought because of something deeper, something no other species seemed to understand. In another system, a new alarm sounded. The Zerath struck again. This time, their target was not alien young. It was human children. The news struck like fire. Earth's outer colonies panicked. Mothers held their babies tighter. Fathers sharpened old rifles. Ordinary humans prepared to fight because they knew what was at stake. When the council heard, alien leaders begged the humans, "Do not waste your forces protecting your own world. Our children are more vulnerable. Protect us instead." Captain, human ambassador's reply was cold, his voice sharp as a blade. "If we cannot defend our own children, we cannot defend yours. Do not ask us to abandon them." The Zerath attack came swift and merciless. A school transport ship was caught in deep space. It never sent a distress call. Only drifting wreckage remained, with small shoes and broken toys among the debris. When the news reached Earth, grief turned into rage. Entire cities lit up with marches. People carried pictures of lost children. Across every human colony, one, Word spread vengeance. The military council gathered, generals, admirals, commanders. Sergeant Hale stood among them, his uniform still scorched from the last battle. One general slammed his fist on the table. They are coming for our children now. We can't just defend. We must strike back. But Hale shook his head. You don't understand them. The Zirath don't fight wars the way we do. They hunt. They choose the weak. They want to break us where it hurts the most. If we strike blindly, we'll waste lives. We need to protect the young first, then find their nest. The room fell silent. Every commander understood. The Zirath were not soldiers. They were predators. Meanwhile, the Zirath prepared their own trap. Deep in the void, their leaders gathered, in a hive of shadows. They resist us now, one hissed, its voice like broken glass. They wound us, another growled. They must be punished, they must be broken. And so the decision was made. Humanity would be hunted above all others. Their courage had to be crushed, their children devoured, their hope destroyed. The next battle came sooner than anyone expected. On a distant moon, human Marines guarded a nursery filled with alien and human children together. The walls trembled as the Zirath descended. But something was different this time. The Zirath were faster, stronger. They had adapted to the last fight. Their claws cut deeper. Their shadows slipped past defenses once thought safe. The Marines fought hard, but every moment brought new losses. Blood ran across the floor. Explosions shook the nursery. One young Marine, barely more than a boy himself, fell to his knees. A Zirath claw pierced his chest. Still with his last breath, he turned his rifle upward and fired, killing the monster before it reached the children behind him. The survivors dragged his body away, whispering his name. Another life, another price of courage. When the battle finally ended, the children were safe again, but half the squad was gone. Back at camp, the surviving Marines sat in silence. No music, no laughter, only the quiet sound of sharpening knives, cleaning weapons, preparing for the next fight. Hale looked at his soldiers. His voice was rough but clear. We do not fight for medals. We do not fight for glory. We fight because if we don't, no one else will. We fight for every child, no matter the world they are born on. That is who we are. His words lit a fire in their hearts. They were tired, broken, scarred. But they would keep fighting, because someone had to. Far away, in the hidden darkness, the Zirath sharpened their claws. This was only the beginning. The galaxy thought humans were their shield, but the Zirath saw them as prey unlike any other, and their hunger was only growing. The night sky above Earth was beautiful, filled with stars and the quiet glow of the moon. Children played in the streets of New London. Parents watched them with tired but proud smiles. And for a brief moment, peace returned. But in the silence beyond the moon, shadows were waiting. A fleet drifted in the darkness. Ships that were not ships, shapes that bent light itself. The Zirath had arrived. Not for colonies, not for distant nurseries. This time they had come for Earth. At first, no one noticed. Satellites went dark, one by one, as if swallowed by night. Then space stations lost contact. A freighter carrying grain never reached orbit. Signals were cut, systems crashed, but no alarms sounded. Only one human patrol frigate saw the truth. Its captain stared at the radar in disbelief. Blurred shapes, too large, too many, moving just beyond the moon. God help us, he whispered before the shadows fell upon his ship. The frigate never returned. On Earth, the Human Defense Council gathered in panic. Screens lit up with broken feeds and scattered signals. Some demanded evacuation. Others begged to move the children off-world. But the commander of Earth Defense, Admiral Kovac, shook his head. His voice was steel. No. We run. We lose. If the Zirath reach our children, humanity ends. We stand here. We fight here. The attack began without warning. Shadows tore through the upper atmosphere. Claws of black fire burning through satellites, stations, ships. Explosions painted the sky like false stars. Cities below stared upward in fear. Children cried, pointing at the streaks of fire. Some thought it was a meteor shower. Others knew better. Human fleets rose from Earth's surface, engines roaring. Hundreds of ships surged into orbit, weapons ready. Humanity's greatest defense force stood between the Xerath and their world. The first clash shook the heavens. Xerath. Warforms struck like predators. They did not line up in neat formations. They swarmed, they twisted. They broke through shields and tore ships apart with living claws. Human warships fired everything they had: missiles, lasers, plasma cannons. Explosions lit the dark. For every Xerath that fell, two more replaced it. Inside one battleship, alarms screamed. A young pilot shouted, "They're everywhere! They're inside the hull!" The comms cut to static, followed by silence. Human. Fleets bled in the void, but they did not fall back. On the surface, Earth's people prepared for the worst. Schools were sealed as bunkers. Families were told to stay underground. Across the world, soldiers marched into defensive lines carrying rifles, digging trenches, setting traps. But even in the fear, humans showed something no other species had. Mothers kissed their children, promising, "We will not let them take you." Fathers stood at the doors with old hunting rifles waiting for the night to come. Every human, soldier or not, became a guardian. In the city of Nairobi, a sudden quake shook the ground. A Xerath warform had landed. Towers crumbled as the creature ripped through steel and glass. Its many eyes burned, searching. It did not look for soldiers. It looked for the nursery at the heart of the city, but human defenders were already waiting. Sergeant Hale, pulled from the colony front, now led Earth's shield wall. His Marines moved through the ruined streets, laying fire from rooftops and alleys. "Keep them away from the children," Hale roared. The battle was brutal. The Xerath tore through, walls like paper. Soldiers fell screaming, but others filled their place. Every block, every corner was fought over. Inside the nursery, children huddled together, hearing the thunder of guns outside. One small boy asked, "Will they get in?" A Marine knelt beside him, handing him a stuffed toy. Her voice was firm, steady. "No, they'll have to go through us first." Across the planet, the same fight raged. In Tokyo, a mother held a rifle on her balcony, firing into the dark as soldiers rushed past. In Brazil, an old farmer loaded shells into a shotgun, standing guard over a school. In the Arctic, engineers turned drilling rigs into weapons, holding back the shadows. The Xerath expected fear. Instead, they found resistance. But the cost was terrible. By dawn, the oceans floated with wreckage. Half the defense fleet was gone. Entire cities lay in ruins, millions were dead, and yet the children still lived, Earth still stood. When the survivors gathered in the ruins of the council hall, their faces were broken, their voices tired. But Admiral Kovac stood tall. "They came for our young. They thought we would break. But we did not. We will never break." Her words, carried through every channel across every human colony, the message was clear. Earth had survived the shadows. Far above, in the dark where the Xerath retreated, their hive whispered in rage. They had struck the heart of humanity and still failed. One voice hissed, "They do not fight like prey, they fight like something else." Another voice answered colder, "Then we must learn their weakness. We must make them betray themselves." And so the Xerath prepared their next move. Not claws, not teeth, but lies. The fires of Earth still burned. Cities lay broken, fleets scattered, but humanity endured. Children were alive. That victory echoed across the stars, and alien races who once doubted now whispered with awe, "Only humans can guard the young." But not every whisper was praise. Some voices turned darker. In the secret halls of the Galactic Council, leaders argued, "The humans are dangerous," hissed the Chancellor of the Tsarine. "If they can face the Xerath, what will stop them from ruling us all?" "They bleed too easily," another alien countered. "Their losses are many. They will burn out before they rise." Yet behind closed doors, fear twisted into jealousy. The more humanity was praised, the smaller other empires felt, and jealousy breeds betrayal. Meanwhile, Sergeant Hale and his Marines moved from world to world. On the planet Elvora, alien mothers knelt in gratitude, pressing gifts of food and gold into the soldiers' hands. Children, alien and human alike, followed them through the streets, calling them guardians. But Hale saw the exhaustion in his soldiers' eyes. Too many battles, too many graves. Every victory came with a cost that no gift could erase. At night, around dim campfires, the Marines spoke softly. "How much longer can we do this?" one asked. "As long as the children need us," another answered. Hale stayed silent. He knew the truth. Courage could not stop the blood from spilling. Then came the colony of Vera. It was a shining jewel in space, home to billions of alien families. The humans were asked to defend it when whispers said the Zerath were near. The Marines prepared, setting up defenses, checking weapons, securing nurseries. But the attack was different this time. The Zerath came with inside help. On the first night, alarms screamed across Vera. Shadows slipped through the sky, clawing at ships and towers. Humans rushed to hold the lines just as they had before. But their weapons misfired. Ammunition crates were empty. Shields failed without reason. Something was wrong. Sabotage, Hale realized, his voice sharp. Someone has betrayed us. Still, his Marines stood firm. They fought in the streets, firing every last bullet, holding doorways with knives and fists when their guns ran dry. Children screamed inside bunkers as shadows pressed closer. A Marine shouted, "We're out of ammo!" Another roared, "Then, fight with your hands," and they did. By dawn, the nursery still stood, but at a terrible price. Half the Marines were dead. The survivors, covered in blood, carried children on their shoulders. But outside the city, the truth was revealed. Alien council members of Vera had sold out humanity. They had given the Zerath codes to break defenses, hoping the monsters would wipe the humans away. They feared humanity's courage more than they feared the hunters. When Hale heard, his face turned cold as stone. "You gave them our people," he said, voice trembling with rage. "You let the Zerath into your home, and for what? To rid yourselves of us?" The counselor stammered. "You grow too powerful. We feared—" Hale's fist slammed into the table. "You feared us more than the monsters that eat your children?" His voice shook the chamber. "Then you deserve nothing. Nothing but the shame of your betrayal." Word spread quickly. Across the galaxy, alien empires were divided. Some stood with humanity, ashamed of the treachery. Others whispered that the humans were too proud, too strong, too dangerous. The Zerath smiled in the shadows. For the first time, they did not need to strike. They only needed to watch the galaxy tear itself apart. On the human ship, Iron Resolve, Hale gathered his remaining Marines. Their faces were pale, eyes hollow. "They betrayed us," one soldier muttered. "We fought for their children, and they stabbed us in the back." "They don't deserve us," another spat. "Let the Zerath take them." Hale's voice cut through the anger. "No, we don't fight for them. We don't fight for their thanks. We fight for the children. Every child, no matter the world. Even if their leaders betray us, we cannot betray them." His words were heavy, but they burned with truth. The Marines nodded slowly. Their trust in allies was broken, but their purpose remained. That night, Hale stood alone on the ship's deck, staring into the stars. His hand rested on a small token, a child's drawing given to him after the last battle. Crude lines, a stick figure of a soldier holding back shadows. Words written in shaky alien script. "Thank you, Guardian." He closed his eyes. That was why he fought. Not for councils, not for empires, but for the little hands that trusted him to stand. Far in the void, the Zerath hive whispered in delight. "They fight among themselves now," one hissed. "Their allies doubt them," another crooned. "Soon they will stand alone." But another voice rose, colder, sharper. "Alone or not, the humans bleed us. They must be ended. Not with betrayal, not with whispers, with fire. All their young in one place. We will strike, and they will break. And so the Zerath turned their gaze to the last fortress, where the HFY galaxy's children had been gathered. The next battle would decide everything. The galaxy was breaking. One by one, worlds had fallen. Fleets burned, colonies vanished, and the Zerath grew stronger with every battle. The betrayal at Vera had left humans isolated. Allies still begged them to fight, but trust was gone. So humanity made a choice. If no one else would stand, then they would stand alone, and they would not stand for glory or for empire. They would stand for the children. Every species across the stars sent their young to one place, a fortress carved into the surface of a dead moon. Its walls were layered with steel and stone. Shields blazed above it, weapons pointed in every direction. Inside, millions of children waited, alien and human alike. It was the last fortress, and if it fell, so would hope. The sky above the moon was silent for 3 days. Soldiers waited behind the walls, checking weapons again and again. The hall smelled of oil, smoke, and fear. Sergeant Hale walked among his Marines. Their faces were pale, their armor patched with old scars. Every one of them knew what was coming. "They'll throw everything at us," one whispered. "Good," Hale said. His voice was steady, though his heart carried the weight of every lost soldier. "Let them come, this time they won't pass." When the Zerath finally arrived, the stars themselves seemed to go dark. Their fleet was endless, black shapes crawling across the void. They moved like a tide of nightmares, filling the sky, blotting out the light. Alarms screamed through the fortress. "All hands to positions, they're here." Children were rushed deeper into bunkers. Mothers wept, clutching tiny hands, whispering prayers to gods who no longer answered. But the Marines only tightened their grips on their rifles. This was the stand they had been waiting for. The first strike fell like thunder. Zerath ships crashed against the shields, claws tearing at the fortress walls. Explosions shook the ground. Towers split in half, but the humans were ready. Every cannon fired. Every turret roared. The fortress blazed with fire and light. Shadows burned in the skies, falling like black rain. On the walls, Hale shouted orders, his voice cutting through the chaos. "Hold the line! Do not let them breach!" His Marines answered with gunfire, grenades, blades when the shadows came, too close. Every corridor, every gate became a battlefield. Hours passed. The walls cracked. Blood stained the halls. Still, the fortress held. But the Zerath adapted, as they always did. Their bodies twisted into new shapes, harder, sharper. They crawled through fire, ignoring pain. With every wave, more Marines fell. A breach opened on the east wall. Hale rushed there with his squad, fighting hand to hand. He slammed his rifle into a creature's chest, pulling his knife to cut its throat. A Marine beside him was dragged, screaming into the dark. Still, Hale fought on. Inside the bunkers, children huddled together. The walls shook. Dust fell from the ceiling. A little alien girl asked, "Will they break through?" A wounded Marine sitting by the door smiled weakly, blood on his lips. "Not while we breathe." Night turned to dawn, though no sun rose on the dead moon. Smoke filled the sky. The fortress was half in ruins, but the children were still alive. The Zerath gathered for their final assault. Their high voice echoed across the battlefield. "Fall, humans, fall, and we will let the little ones live." For a moment, silence filled the fortress. Every soldier heard the offer. Surrender and the children might be spared. Hale's voice broke that silence. "You think we believe your lies? You think we fight for survival?" He raised his rifle, high, shouting loud enough for every soldier to hear. "We fight because no child, human or alien, should face your claws. We fight because even if we fall, our stand will echo forever. So come, monsters. Come and see what it means to face humanity." The fortress shook with the roar of soldiers answering as one. The Zerath swarmed. The battle became a storm of fire and steel. Walls fell, corridors collapsed, blood and shadow covered the ground. Marines fought with empty guns, with knives, with bare fists. Every soldier knew they would not see another sunrise, but none stepped back. At the gates, Hale stood like a wall of his own, firing until his rifle clicked empty, then swinging it like a club. Zerath claws ripped his armor, but he fought on, protecting the children behind him. When dawn finally came, the battlefield was silent. The fortress still stood, its walls broken, its towers ruined, but still standing. The children were alive. Bodies of humans lay everywhere, their armor broken, their weapons shattered. But their eyes were closed in peace. They had done what they swore. They had held the line. Sergeant Hale, bloodied and leaning against the shattered gate, looked once more at the rising smoke. His chest rose and fell slowly, painfully. But when he saw children stepping out of the bunkers safe, his lips curved into the faintest smile. Then his eyes closed. Across the galaxy, news spread. The Zerath had thrown everything at the last fortress, and failed. The hunters of children had been stopped by those who refused to surrender. Every alien race whispered with new awe. The Zerath were still feared. But now humanity was feared as well, not for cruelty, not for conquest, but for courage. The galaxy would never forget the fortress, or the ones who fell defending it. And in every whisper, the truth remained. Only humans can guard the young. The battlefield was quiet. Smoke drifted over broken walls. The ground was littered with twisted claws and shattered armor. Where once the Zerath roared like endless thunder, there was only silence now. The last fortress had held. The children were alive. Humanity had done the impossible, but the cost was carved in blood. Alien families stepped out of the bunkers, trembling. They expected to see shadows waiting, claws reaching, death crawling through the ruins. Instead, they saw human soldiers lying still, weapons in their hands, bodies forming a wall even in death. The Marines had not retreated, not one step. In the shattered gate, Sergeant Hale sat slumped, his armor cracked open. His rifle was broken in two. His eyes were closed, but his face carried a faint smile. Around him lay the corpses of the Zerath he had slain, proof that he had kept his final promise. A small alien boy walked forward, clutching a stuffed toy. His parents tried to pull him back, but he stepped closer to Hale. Gently, he placed the toy beside the fallen soldier. "Thank you," he whispered. Across the galaxy, the story spread like fire. The last fortress had not fallen. Millions of children had lived because humanity refused to break. Where every other species had fled before the Zerath, the humans had stood. For centuries, the Zerath had been the galaxy's nightmare. But now, a new name traveled with equal weight: humans. The Galactic Council gathered once again. This time, in shame, alien leaders spoke in hushed voices, their faces pale. "We doubted them," one muttered. "We betrayed them," another admitted. "And still, they fought for us," a third whispered, voice shaking. No one dared laugh at humanity now. No one sneered at their small fleets or short history. Instead, they lowered their heads in respect. For the first time in memory, fear of the Zerath was joined by awe for the humans. But humanity did not celebrate. On Earth, bells tolled for the fallen. Entire cities marched in silence, carrying pictures of soldiers who would never return. Mothers wept. Fathers stood in mourning. Children lit candles, whispering the names of heroes they had never met but owed their lives to. The price of courage was high, and every family knew it. Still, no one said the sacrifice was wasted. The fortress had proven one thing: humanity's heart was stronger than fear. Weeks later, survivors of the fortress were brought home. Few remained, scarred, broken, weary. They carried the banners of their dead, their armor painted with names. When they stepped onto Earth's soil, crowds fell silent. Then slowly a sound began, soft at first, then rising, not cheering, not shouting, but a chant that spread from one voice to thousands: "Guardians, guardians, guardians." The word carried through the streets, across colonies, through alien worlds. Humanity was no longer just another species. They were the guardians of the galaxy's young, Even the Zerath hive felt the change. Their whispers turned bitter. They bleed us. They defy us. They do not break. For the first time in their endless hunt, the Zerath hesitated. They had learned fear, not of fleets, not of weapons, but of humanity's will. And though they still lurked in the void, they would never again find easy prey. In time, statues were raised at the ruins of the last fortress, not of kings or empires, but of ordinary Marines, men and women with tired eyes and strong hands. At the center stood a figure of Sergeant Hale, rifle in one hand, a child's toy in the other. Beneath the statue were words carved in every known language. They stood when none else would. They fell so the children could rise. They are humanity. Years passed, but the memory did not fade. Alien children told stories of the guardians who fought the monsters. Human children grew up knowing the price of courage, and across the stars a truth remained unshaken. The Zerath were still feared. But humans were feared too. Not because they hunted, not because they conquered, but because they refused to let the innocent fall. In the end, the galaxy learned something simple, something eternal. When shadows came for the young, no council, no empire, no fleet stood between them. Only one species had the heart, the rage, the unbreakable courage to fight until the last breath. And so the whispers became a vow, carried from world to world, never forgotten, feared across the stars. But only humans can guard their young.